Have you ever been watching an episode of the podcast and wondered what's in the mug? Well, we're really proud to be partnering with the amazing folks at Azahar Roast House, located right here in Lowville, New York. Azahar Roast House is a family and community-focused coffee roaster bringing you green coffee exclusively from Colombia. And get this, they always have freshly roasted coffee ready to ship directly to your door. You can order now using the link below and in the description. Be sure to check out their subscription page and have amazing coffee automatically shipped to you every month. Again, that's Azahar Roast House, where coffee meets community and growth, which is what this podcast is all about. To learn more, select the link in the description and order today. Demetrius, welcome, man.
Oh, Brock, man, it's a pleasure to be here, brother.
Yeah, I have been thinking about this for actually since like the podcast's inception. Like that, as soon as we started, I was like, oh yeah, Demetrius is coming on at some point. Yeah. My brother from another mother.
Yeah, man.
And so for anybody who doesn't know you, why don't you just spitball a little bit about who you are now, and then we'll get into some of this other stuff.
Okay, good deal.
Excited.
So I actually just got back from India 2 weeks ago, where I went to deepen my yoga and meditation practice, and this was my third time going. And so I just finished my 500 hours of yoga, which is like level 3 of practice. Okay. And then I did another 10-day silent meditation course where we meditated from 4:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night.
Whoa,
and
wait. 4:30 in the morning till 9 at night.
It's called Vipassana meditation.
You would get your 500 hours pretty quick doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And with this meditation course, the whole idea is that you learn how to remain equanimous, calm, and collective. Okay. And you're sitting down for 10.5 hours each day. Whoa. And the whole goal is to remain, keep one's equilibrium, keep your calmness as you're sitting, and, the pain comes, the Roman thoughts come. And the idea is that same patience you cultivate on your mat is the same patience you cultivate and you practice in life, especially when, different situations emerge. And so, now I teach yoga and meditation in New York City, and that came from, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but that came from a childhood with a lot of trauma and growing up in foster care and all of those things that happened there that led me into this path. And now, so I'm a yoga and meditation teacher. I am looking into becoming a doula to help, with pregnancy and birth and all of those, although I got to get past the sight of blood because blood freaks me out a little bit.
That might be a small hurdle.
A little bit,
if you're not into blood,
So other than that, then I want to get my nutrition license, because now I'm like this wellness guy, and wanting to help other people heal as I simultaneously focus also on my own healing. Yeah,
I like that. You is there something that is psychological about like this mindfulness and like pregnancy specifically, or is it just like an area you want to get into?
I think that it's just adding more of what I can offer to help people in moments of either distress or just helping. So I'm like, okay, meditation, yoga, a doula, a nutritionist, might be a massage therapist, and just adding, while I'm in this wellness world now, just adding all of these different certificates and practices that I can just basically help people on their own healing journey.
Yeah, and the more you can diversify your own skill set, then the more people you can reach. It's interesting because anybody who has kids knows, like, I would imagine like a breathing coach and like that kind of stuff would go a long way for sure, because it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
I'll find out someday.
For sure.
You mentioned kind of your growing up years, but before we get to that, you're in New York City now.
Yep.
Full time, lived there since you were young.
Born and raised.
Okay, born and raised. Yep. Okay. Yeah. And you had mentioned, now that you're up here in the sticks, how like you're a certified 4-dayer.
Right. I got 4 days up here. Then I gotta go back to New York City. But no, I love it.
I think everybody can probably relate to that to some bit on both sides, right? A lot of people from around here would say like, "Oh, I can't handle the noise for like a couple days, and then I gotta be here." Interesting, like pivot on that. Do you think that that's more like a psychological thing, or is it more of like a nature nurture type of deal?
No, that's a good question.
Like just your opinion.
Yeah, maybe both. But I also, and I'll get a little bit into this as well, I also grew up with the Amish. And so being up here, clear skies, open fields.
Yep.
And there's some Amish actually up here that you guys have up here. And seeing, it's very reminiscent of me growing up with my Amish family during the summer camp. I was there with them for 7 years each summer. And from growing up in New York City, Harlem specifically, to now being where there's no TV, there's
no power,
horse and buggy, and everything is natural, So that's why I got about 4 days in me. So I come in up here for a little bit, then I go back, which is funny because when I go back to the city, I'm like, damn, I miss upstate. Back to loud noises quiet. And all of that. So,
and like when you're in a place like those big cities, like it's hard to find like that human connection. I think it's a little harder. Because up here, like you have to rely on each other, especially with the winters up here. Like the community matters, especially if you go back 2-3 generations. It's like, one big family in order to survive, Okay. So like you that's full spectrum then, like New York City, Harlem, and like Northern New York Amish, I don't know if you can get more polarized than that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, what did that teach you? Just getting out of that.
Yeah, no, and that's why I say I feel comfortable because I've grown up in different environments where, if you take maybe your average person from New York and place them up here, they might be like, up here, I come up here and I'm like, hey neighbor, how you doing? And even I remember driving with my Amish family and they would be, as they're driving, the person driving past them, they wave, and that's just like that community minded, that community mindset that everyone has versus in New York City. You be like, hey, they're like, why you saying hi to me? Do I know you, my boy? You're like, yo, chill, bro. Just saying good morning. Just saying good morning.
Is there a problem?
You got a problem with me, bro? You're like, no, I'm just saying good morning, Grand Rising.
I talked to one of my friends when I came back from living in Connecticut for a while, and I was like, it's different. Like, I'm not in New York City, but like there's some big cities real close by, right? And I always used to say, like, up here, if you wave at somebody and they don't wave back, you're like, what is his problem?
Right.
And then down there, like, if somebody waves at you, you're like, wait, what's your problem? What are you waving at?
Right.
It's so different. I think to the point though of, nurture versus like that nature, kind of stuff. When it comes to environment, definitely has an impact. Because I've had people coming from up here. We have really good friends who were in New York City in the Bronx for a long time. Came up and was like, wow, it's like a really big adjustment to sleep during like when it's quiet. And they're like, I just need some like yelling and I need some traffic. That's interesting. Whereas for me, like if I need quiet to sleep, it'd be hard to sleep in that place. So very interesting.
For sure.
Yeah. So take me back to early life for you. Your growing up experience, and basically tell me the Demetrius story.
Yeah, for sure. I was placed into foster care when I was under a year old because of my parents' inability to care for my brothers and I. And so I would be in the foster care system from pretty much 0 to 22. But before then, when I was 5 years old, I would eventually move in with my adoptive mother, who would ultimately change my name. So my biological name is Tasharon Taylor. And then she would, once the adoption was finalized when I was 10, she changed it to Demetrius Johnson. But before I moved into Mrs. Johnson's home, between 1 to 5, I was in about 3 to 4 different foster homes with my 2 older brothers because they was trying to keep us together. And as I'm writing this book now, I remember some very painful memories of one of the foster mothers, like bending my fingers back, bending my brothers and I's fingers back as a form of discipline. And still to this day, I can't make a fist with my left hand. And I reckon that it was because of that. When she would bend it back, it probably broke, and then it just healed that way. So I keep, talk about walking with trauma. And other forms of discipline she had. Like she would make us walk across hot rice, make us do handstands in a corner. And, and this is like early on trauma. And then eventually we would move into my first adopted mother's home, where when I moved into her home, now already have been physically, verbally, and unfortunately sexually abused. I had an immense stuttering problem, and she placed me on several different medications, and which is also something that's very problematic with how young Black and brown kids are overly medicated. And I mean, by the time I was 7, I was on about 3, 4, maybe even 5 different medications, all for anxiety, depression, stress, and all of those things.
Which all have their own side effects.
Yeah, and we don't even know what these medications do over a long term to a person's brain development, especially for children, right?
Brain health, production.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I would stay with this one foster parent, or my first adopted mother, between 5 to 13. And like I said, she changed my name to Demetrius Johnson from Sharon Taylor. And it's interesting because now people are more open to talk about foster care and their adoption stories, and rather it's something that people are proud of. But I remember growing up and being very nervous and scared to tell people about that, because I was like, hey, I already feel ostracized by my family. I don't want to be further secluded or isolated from my peers, because they all live with their families and whatnot, and here I am, the foster kid. And so, I would, from 5 to 13, it was like a lot of different forms, like abuses and neglect. And it wasn't all bad in this adopted mother's home, because she did definitely raise me. And when you hear stories of young people in foster care who are killed or any of those things, which is very unfortunate, I was thankful that she still provided food for me, my brothers, and still nurtured me, and still raised me to be a gentleman, because she was my grandmother. But there was still a lot of problematic things in how she dealt with my misbehaviors and things of that nature. But I will say, as I was talking about the Amish, one of the best things that she did do was she placed me inside of the Fresh Air Fund. And that was a very transformative moment in my life, because for 3 to 4 weeks every summer from 5 to 13, I would go and stay with my Amish family, the King family, and they have 10 kids. And taking a city boy, from Harlem, and now placing him, and I first moved in or visited my Amish when I was 5. So this is a very impressionable age. So now from the city to now being where, we had electricity, but we didn't have, like TVs or radios or video games, or it was just books, and we would play outside and go milking cows at 5 a.m. in the morning. I was telling Dad earlier about cutting the chickens' heads off as a kid, and then the body would jump out the cone and then run down, and it was like for a 5, 6, 7-year-old boy seeing that, I'm like, yo, what is going on? It was
it's culture shock.
Yeah, it really was, but it's something that I'm so grateful for, because, and I also, and really attribute my faith in God to them, because they also showed me that dysfunction does not have to be part of a family, because growing up in foster care, unfortunately, there is a lot of disorder and dysfunction in the homes. And now being with my Amish family, where it's 10 or 9 or 10 kids in the house, both parents are there, very structured in their discipline, and when we wake up, when we go to sleep, we're eating at the table together, we're praying together, we're going to church on Sundays. And that order showed me that disorder is not normal, and that this is how family should be. And so I'm very thankful for that, because had I not had that experience, then I would have maybe I would have been reared up believing that chaos is part of just your normal life. So
no kidding.
Yeah, so from there, there was a lot of things that happened in the childhood. Like I said, I was on several different medications as a child, Adderall, Xanax, Stressed or something like that. And all of these medications was to keep me calm and, help me to regulate myself. And, just to fast forward for a second, when I eventually would get into meditation in my early 20s, it was revolutionary, because here is someone who just only thing that my second adopted dad would do is just bring me back to the awareness of my breath. And it was like, hey, this was revolutionary because they tried all of these forms of, self-regulation. They even put me inside of a psychiatric ward house where at 11 years old, I must have been having a dysregulated moment inside of this mental institution. And they put me in a straitjacket, threw me inside of a padded room. And then I must have been banging my head against the wall. And then a couple of security guards came in, pinned me down, and then they stuck a needle in my right buttocks. And then within 30 seconds, I was knocked out cold, sleeping. And so when I eventually would get into meditation, 15, 20 years later, it was like, if someone would have said as a kid to Sharon or Demetrius, let's focus on our breathing, let's take deep breaths, I think maybe I might have not been instantly into it, but I think once I would have felt the impact on my body and how, this is a tool that I can always tap into to help me calm myself down, that would have been it would have just saved me from a lot of headaches, because we're talking about how I learned to regulate myself I really didn't learn. I just would act out my emotions and then face the repercussions. And then it was those repercussions that made me like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do it that way or such. And so now, 13 years old, I was placed back into the foster care system. And it was because of the abuse in the home picked up. And and it was a fire in the home that I was accused of starting. And from there, this was my entry point back into foster care, where from 13 to 22, I would be in approximately 25 different foster homes. And then the story just gets, from there. But
13 to 22. So is it not that when you're 18, you're adult?
Yeah.
Move on.
In some states, you age out at 18, but even then, it's like who's really ready to move out on their own at 18,
right?
And then we're talking about traumatized populations that their mind is not as developed. If anything, their mind is more undeveloped because they have so much trauma
or misdeveloped.
Yeah,
if that's even a word.
Right.
Am I making up words?
Yeah, that's all right. We're making it up, But
for sure.
So, but just think of the average person, 18 years old. Your mom's like, all right, go out there and figure it out. Like, so now you take a traumatized person and be like, all right, now you're on your own. Chances are they're going to retreat back into their habitual traumatic ways and coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And so, but in New York City, it's 21 unless you don't have housing, which for me, I didn't have housing at 21. I didn't get my own apartment until I was 22. Okay. And so I was able to stay into the system with my then foster parents. And then I got my own housing. And then, but I always tell people that, young people in foster care, they become aware of their traumas most likely when they leave the foster care system, because now you're out in the world and then you become aware of your particular ways and your traumatic responses or reactions. And then you're like, wait, hold on. Why am I searching for love in this place? Or I'm seeking comfort in this, or I'm escaping with this, marijuana, whatever it is. And then that's when you become, okay, it's because of, I didn't have my mom in my life, or I was abused, or this, that, and the third. Yeah. And so this is where, it becomes more important for us to take care of ourselves, especially given that we have so much trauma. But yeah.
So how many, you said it was from when you did that extensive jumping around to different, what years was that again?
I was 13 until 22.
Until 22.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so 9 years.
Yeah.
25 different foster care homes.
Yeah.
Whoa.
In total, it was 30 because I was in about 5 homes, including Miss Johnson's home, my first adopted mother's home. Okay. So I just comfortably say at least 30 foster homes throughout my 22 years.
Almost 3 a year.
Yeah, for sure. At least. Yeah.
What, as a child, because 13-year-old is a child.
Yeah, for sure.
What is that feeling like going from house to house to house? I mean, you can get into it as much as you want as far as detail, but 30 homes almost, 25, 30 homes. What percentage of those are even decent?
Yeah.
For people who should really be in foster parenting.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say I did have some good foster parents that really loved me and accepted me and took me in as their own. But I also struggled with so much trauma, and so I was so used to people coming in and out that sometimes I would intentionally sabotage those parents and that relationship. Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, it came to the point where they're like, look, man, this ain't my kid. And, you know, they would just pass me on to the next foster home. But it definitely, you know, impacts your belief, your belief in yourself and your sense of self-worth, because you just become like an object. And especially when, you know, I eventually found out that one foster mother was still receiving you know, refund checks for me even though I wasn't in her care. So she was using like my social security number. Then my first adopted mother, she was receiving money for myself and my brother through adoption subsidies, as if I was in her care for those 7 years, from 13 to 21, 22, when I re-entered the foster care system. And that actually inspired me when I worked on Capitol Hill to write a policy paper on adoption subsidy fraud, basically meaning when adopted parents are still receiving money to take care of their adopted child, but their adopted child is no longer in their care. And the law was like, oh, as long as they're providing any form of support, and it's like, okay, she can be writing me a card once a year, and then that can be, it's too vague. And so,
no way, legislation that's too vague and too broadly applied. What
Who
is that?
Not in America.
No, not in the US. Wow.
Okay. But that you know, inspired me to write that adoption subsidy paper. And you know, but back to your question, it definitely impacted my self-worth. And it now, as I'm doing a lot of the shadow work and healing and all of those things, I always tell myself to give myself grace, because I'm reading this book now. It's called "It Didn't Begin With You," and it talks about how, at minimum, the trauma of our grandmothers, how it's, you know, whatever grandma was going through, and especially if she was pregnant, was passed down through the placenta into the womb of our mothers, and then we was the precursor cell inside of our mothers, as our mothers is in our grandmother womb. And so basically that trauma gets passed down to me. And then, you know, that's just one side of the family. Well, both families are jacked up. And then you have, you know, systematic things that also play into that trauma. And so the grace for myself is like, OD, like, you know, you have been through a lot. And then you also are carrying the trauma from former generations. And so this is where, you know, a lot of the self-love and self-care has to come in, because if not, then, you know, you continuously using substances and, you know, online activity, being promiscuous, all of these things, because you're just searching for love. And then ultimately, eventually you get to that point where you're like, yo, that love has to emanate from you, has to come from you. And that sometimes is a very hard process, because who wants to look inside of themselves if they feel like they're just a human being filled with trauma, you know? And gets deep.
Yeah. I mean, you're touching on it there. What's the name of the book?
It's called It Didn't Begin With You.
Didn't Begin With You. Okay.
Yeah.
The premise, it sounds like, is there's a biological factor.
Yeah.
That's actually ingrained in who you are. And it's just kind of your starting point.
Yeah.
Where it's fascinating. I would have never thought about that. I know that experiences and trauma generationally is certainly passed down in story, experience, all of these things, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, and how that can affect you. I mean, that's just the impact of that can be hard to overcome. Yeah. Especially when it's a generational curse or it's a generational struggle. Yeah, man. I mean, we talk a lot about on this podcast about, you know, you are a byproduct a lot of times of your environment, of course. And the groundwork that was laid out before you, you know, it didn't start with you. Right. So a lot of the benefits that I am receiving would be my faith, my family structure, the community within my family, the relationships within my family, but also the knowledge passed down of, not even directly. So this is kind of what I mean, is I watched my grandfather parent, not like directly, but I could see it through the way my parents parented us. And a lot of the core values that are instilled in us, I didn't do that. I didn't lay that foundation, that framework. My my grandfather did, my grandfather's father did for generations. And, you know, that's a legacy that I want to continue. That is something that is very important for my kids' lives and for, you know, health and wellness is what we're talking about. This is mind, body, and spirit stuff, you know, like it is something that will not only impact you, but generations to come. Yeah. And that is the biggest beneficiary I have had, that I haven't had to worry about. So when I moved, especially when I moved out of the area and got to experience people in a little bit more diverse a setting, as far as viewpoints, as far as ethnicity, as far as backgrounds, as far as upbringing, really opened my eyes a lot to understand that they don't have that foundation, and how grateful I am for that foundation, and how powerful that is to pass it down now for generations to come. The flip side of that is when you're in a environment and you're in a culture like we would have within my family, it can be easy to shut out and not understand why people who aren't in that and who haven't received the benefit from that, how they can't just figure it out. And it's just a totally backwards way of looking at the world. It's not a Christ-like way of looking at the world. For sure. But I know that a lot of people in very conservative circles struggle with that. They might not admit that they struggle with that, but it is. And so, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is we don't start on, we all don't start from the same place. And that's a fact. To the people who don't understand what it's like to go through some of this and feel kind of the burden of a legacy that's not so great, you know, and maybe they can't relate to that. You know, what would you say?
I mean, I think you hit the nail. I don't know how that phrase goes, but you hit the nail in the sense that further exposing yourself, right? Because I mean, for me, living with the Amish, traveling the world, I've lived in Ghana, India, Europe for a little bit. And when you further expose to yourself to different cultures and different ways of life, then that further opens your eyes like, oh, you know, everyone didn't have the same, you know, start as I had, or maybe weren't also instilled with the same values, or, you know, didn't have the family foundation that I had, and this is why perhaps maybe they are the way they are. And I think that breeds within yourself more compassion and understanding. I mean, King Solomon, who was credited to being the wisest man that ever lived, said, though it costs you everything, get understanding. And it's really the lack of understanding that produces a lot of the conflicts in the world today. And so I think, you know, just what you said, like further exposing yourself to like, and then also having these conversations and saying, hey, tell me your story. You know, Socrates once said, be kind, for every person you meet is fighting a hard battle. And I think if we just took that approach, like, hey, what's your story? Tell me your story. And then a person opens up like, hey, I went through X, Y, and Z. Then that gives you a little bit more understanding on their perspective and where they're coming from. And lastly, one of my chess mentors, rest in peace, he said, there are as many ways to see a thing as there are people to see it. And that always resonated with me, because with that knowing, then just because it's just you and I in this conversation, instantly there's two perspectives to everything. And then I think for me, it's like, instead of being like, oh, my perspective is right. And even if it is right, still having the humility to be like, okay, I'm going to listen to your perspective and try to understand it from your shoes. And then maybe I can, you know, pivot from, well, how I'm seeing the world. But I think that's it. Just having conversations, further exposing yourself to other cultures and identities and ways of being and living. And then that increases your understanding and makes you more tolerant and compassionate.
And more well-rounded too. I mean, like, I don't know who quoted this, but they were like, the more you learn that you don't really know. So the more you need to learn. It's just a revolving cycle. Like we all think we have the answers, right? Like we all think that we have this perfect finite balance of this is how things ought to be. This is how things should be. And the truth is, like, just like you said, whether you are right or whether you're not, it's not the point. You know, you need to be able to meet people where they're at. So yeah,
I think it was Socrates also said that. He said, I'm the wisest man. I'm the wisest man in the world because I know that I know nothing. And it's like, okay, once you be like, oh, I know.
Right.
But the more you learn, you realize that you know not as much as you really do know, because knowledge is so vast. So keeping that humility within your spirit, like, hey, I know X, but really I'm here to learn more.
That's next level self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole purpose of trying to find your inner being, or whatever you want to call it, on a like psychological level. If you want to be good at these things, then open your ears and let people pour into you.
Listen.
Okay, so let's move to when you are 22. Okay. Unless you want to delve a little bit more into the 13 to 22 range, because that jumping around, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Like we had foster children in our home a lot of my upbringing. And this is the same thing. Like in my mind, I was never like, oh, this is a huge inconvenience for me. Sure. Like I have to share my parents now with people who that's not their parents, whatever. But it's because it was a little bit second nature, and it's just kind of like what we did. That's just what we did. But I would be remiss to not mention the fact that I had no idea their backstory. I had no idea like that connectivity I could have had with them on a deeper level. I mean, I was probably like 12, whatever. But we had children in our home who had issues, who struggled, who had, anger problems, and had all of these different things. And looking back on it now, I give a lot of grace for them. For sure. Like I give a lot of grace for the outbursts and the things that we would have had to deal with on the surface that we didn't understand was a lot deeper. I can't imagine how that related to you going into a brand new home with different people, every 3 months, every 4 months. That's got to impact you for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, some cases I remember one foster home, and talk about a honeymoon stage being not 2 weeks, but a day, because when you move in, oh my God, you're family and we love you. And then next day it's like, oh wait, no, hold on. I'm like, did I sleep wrong or something that got you ready to kick me out? But this home particularly, I left because of their bed bugs, and I just felt too institutionalized in this one home I'm thinking of. And, but like I said, it definitely impacted my self-worth. And now I give myself grace, because it's like you cultivated unhealthy habits because those habits provided relief for you. And I think when we look at people who struggle with any form of addiction to whatever it is, it could be food, it can be X, Y, or Z, I think we looking at it as, it's not just that you want to do this or that you don't have the strength to pull yourself out of it, but that this is a coping mechanism, because you have been so stressed or so in pain that this provides a moment of relief for you, even if it's toxic to you, and that it later on produces other ramifications from indulging in it. But in that moment, it's a psychological relief. And I think once we look at addiction as, not as this person just don't have inner strength or discipline and can't pull themselves up by the bootstraps, or however that phrase goes, and look at it as like, no, this is a person who does this because this is how they cope with whatever trauma they have. So maybe I read a book one day and it said, maybe we need to stop asking what's wrong with you and ask what happened to you.
Yeah.
And that when I read that, I just started crying, because I started thinking about the things that happened to me, and no one's asked me. They've always been, what's wrong with you, Tasharon? What's wrong with you, Demetrius? And then even before I can answer, I was like, oh, well, no, you've already created in your mind what's wrong with me. So you asking that question is really not really genuine. And so, but moving on until I was 22, after going through all of those different foster homes and such, that's when I got into meditation through my second adopted dad. So, like I said, when I got adopted, she changed my name to Demetrius Johnson. And then when I got adopted again, this one considered or called an adult adoption. It was started when I was 20, finalized by the time I was 22. Okay. Where then my name became Demetrius Tasharon Napolitano, or I like to say Napolitano.
Ooh, I like that.
Napolitano.
My wife's Italian, so.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Giada, Sienna,
that makes sense. Okay. It's funny when people see my last name on paper before they meet me, because Demetrius is Greek, Napolitano is Italian, so then I'll pull up to maybe a job interview. They're like, Mr. Napolitano. I'm like, no, Mr. Napolitano. You got to say it with a little flair, with it, you know.
And the guy's like, okay.
Right. All right, let him in.
You look like the prototypical Italian.
You know,
yeah,
or maybe not to some people because they're like, wait, you're black, you got tats, you got locks. What are you doing? You know,
for sure.
But which I'm so grateful for. But John, he first introduced me to meditation because he felt like it would be a good tool for me to have. And I've heard of meditation before, but I've never before that moment actively and mindfully practiced it. And so he just had these 2 bells and he's like, I'm just going to ring them 3 times and I just want you to reconnect with your breath. I'm like, all right, John, do whatever you got to do. So he's like, all right, ready? Hits the bell. On that next inhale, slowly breathe in and slowly exhale. And by the 3rd breath, it was the first time that I realized that, wait, hold on. Who knew that this thing literally under my nose could help me calm down? And we're talking about someone, as I already alluded to, who tried all of these other toxic ways of calming down, of de-stressing. And this is a tool that I don't need anything externally to aid me in it. Rather, it's just mindfully breathing. And then from there, I would go to different meditation centers throughout the city. And I remember the first time we sat down for 20 minutes to meditate. And the reason why this was revolutionary, because we're talking about a kid who, you know, the more that a child in foster care is diagnosed and has these different titles or I don't want to call them titles, but, you know, problem child or this child, the more money that the parent gets, the more medications, the more money. And so for me sitting down for the first time for 20 minutes, it was like, oh, wait, hold on. I can do this. I can sit still and not move my body and be present with myself versus they would, you know, if you leave it to the caseworkers or the social workers or case planners or foster parents, they're like, oh, no, he can't do that. He's a problem child. He has all of ADD, ADHD. And this is what, just to digress for a second, even with my students that I teach, I remember one kid was like, yeah, I got ADHD. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know, but it's like, okay, well, first of all, it means attention, hyperactive disorder, ADD, hold on, what does it mean? Attention
ADHD.
deficit, hyperactive disorder.
Correct.
And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but you are claiming that as I am.
Part of your identity.
Yeah, exactly. And just a little quick biblical story. I remember when Moses asked God, who shall I say sent me to free the Israelites, Hebrews? He says, tell them that I am sent you. So as this Reverend named Reverend Ike, he would say, anytime you say I am, that becomes your reality. And that's in one way God's name. So if you say I am broke or I am, you know, I have ADHD or these things, even if that's a fact, that's not the truth of you, as Reverend Ike would say. And so for me, sitting down for those 20 minutes, it was like, oh, wait. And after the bell goes off, I'm like, wow, I just sat down for 20 minutes and meditated. So it's a real you to the system and to everyone else who said that I was not capable of, you know, regulating myself. And then from there, I would go off to do a few more meditation retreats until the big day where I decided to go to India in 2019 of September, and where I left for 9 months to study meditation and yoga on the other side of the world.
9 months. Wait, you left in September 2019?
Yeah. So before the pandemic.
So, if anybody can do the math, nine
June.
months.
I came back June 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of all the chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. How did you, were like flights grounded and stuff at that point? Was it hard to get back? Maybe not by June.
Yeah, but by June it was slowly, you know, especially because I was getting out of the country.
Yeah, so you missed all the lockdown craziness.
Yeah, I do, and
especially in the city.
Yeah, which I was so thankful because I was in the southern state of Kerala, which is the southern state of India named Kerala, and I was like in a forest in a hostel amongst trees, and you know what I mean. So nice. I was so grateful that I wasn't like in Mumbai where it's chaotic, or in New York City where there was a lot of protests and things that were going on at the time.
That must be really important to you to have pursued that, because you're not like a go out and sit in the quiet guy. We just talked about that, right? You're a 4-dayer, and then you got to kind of get back to your your noise and your hustle and bustle. Right. So that just kind of proves how intentional you were about pursuing this thing.
Yeah.
A point that you made was the phrase "pick yourself up by the bootstraps," which I hate. And it's not that there's not utility to that, because there is, and I have utilized that same concept before in my life. That's fine. It's that usually when that phrase is being thrown around, there's some ignorance thrown in there and judgment.
Yeah, for sure.
And if the phrase that how you say a phrase matters, the intention behind a phrase matters, and how you deliver it to the person also matters. Yeah. I would argue that there's another step that is the heart and position of that person to receive it also matters.
Okay.
Because if I'm going to bring something to you and your heart's not ready to listen, that's a hard place to be, Bible talks about that a little bit, about, Jesus softening people's heart to listen and to hear. Well, okay, it's a similar thing. If you're not in a place to receive the information, I can still give it to you, but you may not receive it, and the relationship could be fractured there.
Right.
It's just, it kind of comes back to communicating your message properly and understanding that people are at different places, because your intentions could be good, but if it's taken the wrong way,
for sure,
and I think that matters too.
And also having having the discernment about when to share something with someone. Right. If you discern instantly that this person doesn't have the capacity to hold whatever you're about to tell them, then maybe you're like, let me hold off on saying this right now, or say it in a more gentle way, or maybe just don't say it at all and let them. I think sometimes we just get because I want to say it and you need to hear it. So maybe they do need to hear it, but maybe just not right now.
Yeah.
It
takes a prerequisite relationship in order to have most hard discussions.
For sure.
And nobody has that in today's culture. Everything's online. Everything is shouting at each other and Facebook comments, and we're trying to convince the other side versus have the conversation. I'm not saying it's not out there; it's just rare.
Yeah.
I think that's just so important. You mentioned, breathing when you're upset is a pretty fundamental thing, right?
Yeah.
So anybody who's listening to this goes, "What? 22-year-old didn't know how to breathe and calm himself down at 21 or 20?" Because a lot of people have stories that they weren't taught this stuff.
Yeah.
I teach that to my 2-year-old and my 3-year-old.
Sure.
Take a breath, relax, calm yourself down. Physiologically, it works on that level.
Yeah.
Emotionally, for your, I guess more psychologically, it's also a trigger to your physiology.
Very much so.
And this has been borne out in countless studies that when you increase oxygen flow to the brain, calm yourself down, then you're kind of able to get back to equilibrium, which is what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Homeostasis. I learned a word in high school, and it was the one.
Yeah, for sure. But even if you think about it, they never. When did you take a breathing course, or in high school and in elementary school? Now that's like the push and the work that I'm doing now is to bring more meditation and yoga to the kids, young people, etc. But especially right now, when I run into maybe a parent and their kid is like, "Oh, hi, Mr. D," and the parent's like, "Well, who's that?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm their meditation teacher." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they need meditation." Then I'm like, "Well, the apple don't fall too far from the tree." Because children are a reflection of the society, and the society right now is more or less chaotic. And lastly, I think of one of my favorite philosophers. His name is J. Krishnamurti. He was an Indian philosopher, and he said, the chaos in the world is only a reflection of the chaos and the disorder within each individual, because the society is nothing but a collection of individuals. So we seek in vain to address the chaos externally. We have to address our own internal disorder, which we all have. And until you address that, unfortunately, then you are going to just continuously contribute to the chaos of the world. And so this is why these breathing practices and each individual cultivating it themselves, so that you can get better at responding to life rather than reacting to situations.
Yeah. That would be a Dr. Jordan Peterson thing. Make sure your room is in order before you go out and try to fix the world.
Exactly.
That is.
But that's a hard thing to do, though.
Well, it's hard because you want to have maximal effect on the world.
For sure.
Especially it does depend on your personality. It does depend on probably your atmosphere, where you are, but look around at people whose house is in disarray out trying to fix the world, and how productive is that actually? It's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, just to your point about how things get passed down from our, generations above us, before us, and your presence here with your daughters, how significant that is. Imagine if you wasn't here, God forbid, then they would grow up without a father in their lives. And like, I didn't have my mother or my father in my life, but it was really not having my mom in my life that it sent me on this spiral of looking for love in all of the wrong places, and that put me into other situations that a lot of headaches later on and as such. And it was like, some of this could have been mitigated and lessened had my mom just been around. And obviously it was her and my father during the 80s, during the crack epidemic in Harlem and elsewhere. And they, with dealing with their own traumas that they incurred from previous generations, and then the environment around them being extremely toxic. And it just became even harder for them to cope and take care of themselves as they know that they should. It's those small things. And sometimes that small thing is just being present, just being present where you are and doing the best right then and there.
Yeah. Take me back a little bit to, okay, so forget present day us right now. Let's go back to you get back from your 9-month trip, India, to well, you had a lot of opportunity to really exercise what you had learned post, or actually right in the middle of the pandemic. Like stressful time, crazy time, wild, sure. Almost hard to believe that it even happened. Right. Like when I look back at that time period, it seems like it was a dream. Right. I remember, man, especially with the shutdowns. Of course, I was going to work still, so like Saturday afternoon, not a single car on the street. Like really weird. Weird time. So you got to use a lot of that, I'm sure. Exercise some breathing. Maybe you could have come and taught me.
For sure.
I would like to know mostly how your experience through the foster care system, and then kind of this mindfulness journey that you've been on, how does that impact the way that you see the world?
It is definitely, I mean, I often think to myself, how did I get through my life or my journey without these practices? And even now as a young man, I'm 31 now. We're getting older. We're getting older. I know. So even now, right there are moments when I quote unquote relapse, and then I go back into those former traumatic ways, and then obviously I give myself grace, but it's not long before I'm like, yo, you can't remain here because this energy is so toxic. I'm cultivating, I have more self-awareness now. So it's like, okay, you got to pivot, you got to shift yourself out of this. And so having these practices have helped me as I regulate myself and soften, that tension in my mind, soften the stress in my body, then I'm able to show up in the world in a more, I guess, mindful way where I'm, if someone says, oh, hey, something you did bothered me. If I am dysregulated and my ego is all in front of me, then I'm not trying to hear that. But if I can soften myself and I'm in a regulated state, I'm calm, then maybe I'm more open to saying, hey, what did I do that offended you, or whatever the case may be. So as far as how these practices have helped me see the world in a more softer way, if you will, just by having a more calmer demeanor, can you see everything differently? It's like when let the steam or let the waters stop moving, then you can see through the water. But if you are dysregulated, if you are in the fight or flight response in your body, if you are overly stimulated, then it's going to be hard for you to show up and be present or see people or things as they are. You're going to see them in the state that you're in. And so now it's like daily practice, daily meditation practice, breathwork practice, yoga practice. And when I don't do it and I go back into those former spaces of, I'm about to go smoke some weed, I'm about to go drink, I'm about to go do this. And there's nothing wrong with those things. I think that when you're doing it to cope and you're not facing whatever it is that you're trying to cope from, I think that's where it gets a little murky. Yeah. And for me now, it's like, because I haven't really done those things for the enjoyment of them in themselves. It's rather like, yo, I don't want to feel these emotions. So let me just go roll one up, or let me go drink because I don't want to feel.
It's an escape.
It's escape, and it's escapism. And anyone that has escape, you realize that you don't really escape. It's a moment, but then you come back, and it's like, oh, wait, that demon's still there, just waiting for you to return back to it. So, I think for me now, it's just about making sure I stay in my practice so that I can show up in the world as a teacher, as a leader in my own way, and then as a healer, right? Because I think someone once said, remember, Demetrius, you sit in the seat of the healed and the healer. So reminding ourselves that we are healing ourselves and helping others heal. That is not like, oh, I've been to the mountaintop and I'm healed now, you do it this way. No, it's like, hey, I'm healing right now as we speak, and I'm here to help you on your path as well. And as I help you, I therefore help myself.
Yeah, it's like a path of restoration for everybody. We're all on that same thing. You touched a little bit about what I would consider emotional intelligence, being able to kind of see all of those details and realize in yourself, oh, this is something I need to pull back on, or this is something that's not fulfilling for me at all. And a lot of my problems are stemming from something deeper that takes more work than just a Band-Aid, than going out for a drink. Yeah. That doesn't fix anything. Mm-hmm. It's a moment where you feel some release, but it's kind of empty at the end of the day. That is a highly, that's pretty deep stuff. Yeah. That is a maturity level that not a lot of people can even get to. Yeah, I think so. That's kudos to you, man. Mm-hmm. The next thing I thought about was, before we get into, I have some questions about foster care because you've done some work in foster care, but I want to know how you came to know my parents, first of all, because probably everybody's like, wait, what are you talking about? Brother from another mother? Right. What is that talking about? Can you explain what that's, because most of this is like news to me, honestly. Like your whole story, I don't think we've ever sat down and I've been able to hear your story, which is so awesome. So go ahead and tell that story.
For sure. So when I graduated from high school back in, this would have been in maybe 2015, 2016, I got accepted into SUNY Jefferson, which is about in Watertown, New York. And I was talking to a friend one day on the phone, and I was talking about how lonely I was up there because I'm from New York City now. This ain't like the Amish town. It's cold up here. It's isolated. Unless you got a car, you ain't going far.
That's for sure, especially in the wintertime. Forget that noise.
So I was just in my crib by myself. So she's like, "Why don't you reach out to the local foster care agency and see if you can do some speaking for them?" I was like, that's a good idea. So I did some quick research. That's when we used Google, not ChatGPT, because it was nice. I was Google local foster care agencies.
ChatGPT is still new. We're in the early stages of figuring out how much that's going to mess us all up for the future.
I know. There's always these pros and cons. To these things.
Google.
I Google. Then I'm like, okay, this local foster care agency. I emailed the director. I'm like, hey, my name is such and such. I'm up here studying, and I grew up in foster care, blah, blah, blah. Would love to share my story. And it just so happened that a week or two later, they was having one of the meetings where adoptive parents or prospective adoptive parents would come into the agency. Someone would share. Okay. And so they asked me to be the speaker for that night. And so I agreed, and I set my phone up to record myself, and I put it on the table over there somewhere, and I angled it in a certain way so it can watch me as I record, because I was just starting to speak, and I wanted to see how my speaking would be. And then mom and dad, your parents, walked in amongst everyone else. And I would later find out that they would generally always sit in the back. But for some reason today, this day, Dad, your father, Will, was like, hey, we're going to sit in the front, because he led the way, because even Mom, Dawn, was like, wait, what you doing? And he was like, oh, let's go sit over there. And so.
Which is I don't know if that's really like my dad. Yeah. He's kind of a little bit lower profile.
Right, for sure. And he was in the front on the side. And when I look back on the camera, they was in the video the whole time I was speaking. Yep. And so at the end, we we connected, and the rest is really history, because the fact that I lived up here in Watertown and them being here in Lowville, and then, you know, them having their own adopted children, they was like, oh, we would love for you to come, you know, speak to them or come over for dinner one day. And I was already lonely up there, so I was like, I'll take a home cooked meal. I'm tired of eating oodles noodles and Hot Pockets and, you know, Taco Bell.
Little Caesars,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Little Caesars taste like cardboard box, you know. So I was like, all right, bet, let's do it. And then really the rest is history, you know. They have, it's been now, I'm 31, so easily over a decade. It's been almost 12, 13, 14 years now. Crazy. And I think, you know, God makes no mistakes when he puts people in your life. And when I look back at that video, I don't have it no more, but the fact that they was in the video was and the fact that Dad said, hey, let's go sit in the front today, I just want to do something new, that the Spirit moved him in that way. And then the fact that we connected, and sometimes you connect with people and you have maybe a 1 or 2 times where you are together, but then it fades away. But this one was like, nay, we ain't gonna fade away. And then I just would come up every so often up here back when I did go back down to the city after that one semester, because it was just like, yeah, it's not for me. You know, it's a little racism, a little ignorance, and I missed the city a lot. So then I was like, just when I transferred back down, but even then I stayed in contact with them. And clearly I'm back up here today, you know, over this 10 plus year of a relationship. And, you know, now I call them my godparents, and, you know, they've just embraced me, and even the kids, you know, your older brother, Tyler, it's Tyson, and his older kids now, who are not much older, they, I remember you a little bit, you know? So it's just like, I've been around for some time now, and now seeing your baby girls, and now like, that's Uncle D. Hey, how you doing, Mama? Good to see you. You know? Now
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I ever, like, I knew that that's how they met you, but I didn't know like some of the detail. That's pretty cool. Yeah. My parents are, they're incredible. I mean, they're what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. And we're not just saying that because they're going to watch this.
No. It's a shout out.
No, for sure.
You have a unique perspective of the foster care system, obviously.
Sure.
In it, out of it now for a while. It does seem like a system that is just so big that it's just hard maybe to regulate properly. A lot of kids kind of get lost in the weeds, you know, it feels like, and are in the abusive relationships and these homes, and there's fraud, and there's all of these problems. My personal opinion is that it's not really the state's job, it's the church's job. You know, like as believers, like, this is what we're supposed to do, and we're so sorely lacking on all of this, where the state has had to step in because for obvious reasons. We do know that the state doesn't always do a good job,
for sure.
You know, and so that makes it kind of a difficult discussion to have. But do you see any ways that it could be better?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions someone asked me a while back, they said, you know, now when you left the foster care system, now looking back, what are some things that you wish that you would have, you know, known? And I'm like, okay, because, you know, when you leave the foster care system, or when you're about to transition, it's real. Let's check these things off. You got your driver's license, maybe you got your passport. Do you have an apartment? And those things are important, but I always say the 2 things that I wish there was more focus on, because both of those things are intertwined, which is my mental health and financial literacy and understanding how to use money. And especially when we talk about young people in foster care, that, you know, I got trauma with money because there were foster parents that just saw myself and others as a check. And so when you are devalued for money, then when you get money, you devalue it, because you're like, hey, I'm just worth a few dollars. Or, you know, one time I said as a kid, someone pinched my cheeks and was like, oh, you're so handsome. I was about 5 or 6 years old. I'm like, oh, I'm not handsome. I'm a piece of trash. And so just how the system, you know, makes you feel more insecure in yourself, and then you don't know how to cope through your mental health, or you don't know how to work through your trauma, and you don't know how to manage your dollars. So as soon as you get a little few money, you just go into, you know, maybe indulge in your vices, or you are just spending because you don't know how to manage it. So those are the two things. Like, okay, help me work on my mental health. Like, what do I do when these triggers they arise to the surface, or the holidays come around? Instead of drinking and smoking the holidays away, how do I cope with that loneliness or that sadness that arises? How do I sit with that? How do I be present with that? And then understanding the money, it's like, dude, you're 30 plus and you're still not managing your money. I mean, in my case, I'm obviously better with it now, but it's still so important, because this is, especially once again, when children are used for money, and then their relationship with money is also soured because of that. Right. So those two ways, I mean, amongst many others, but it's like, let's help young people, because once again, we're talking about young people who we all have trauma, but especially these young people who grow up in this system, and then they have trauma from their parents, and they don't know how to cope with that. They don't know how to deal with that, and so it's like the cycle continues. And then chances are they have children at young ages, and then now the cycle continues for the next generation. And so help me understand how to take care of my mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, and then also help me to manage my dollars so that I can start this business idea and then not just waste the funds that I get, Yeah.
So when we're talking about policy prescriptions for this kind of thing, like, life coaches, therapy, especially for regulating the emotion and stuff like that. It just seems like such an uphill battle in an industry that is clearly overwhelmed. Like anybody who will tell you, like, the mental health industry, the mental health professionals, the experts, the counselors, counseling, that's the word I wanted to use before. I don't love the word therapy as much, but that's for my own reasons. Counseling and like life coach stuff would be so valuable. Yeah. But it is a resource thing. Like, it is, how overwhelmed can you be? The foster care system's very overwhelmed. Yeah. The adoption system is very overwhelmed.
The parents, everyone,
Mental health, forget about it. Yeah. Like, they're probably the most overwhelmed area of study and resources. Yeah. So I don't even know where you start with that.
It's like the social workers. I remember my social worker. She had like maybe 30 something kids on her case, and it's like, how can you give? And then each kid is like 10 kids in one, because you're dealing with a very traumatized, mentally undeveloped population. And then so the social worker's burnt out. I was blessed by my social worker, who was with me between 13 to 19, and she only stopped at 19 because her husband had given birth, and so that's why she took her leave of absence. But that 3 years that she was gone, I had about 4 or 5 different social workers. So I can imagine if Miss Ince wasn't there for me, then how many more social workers I would have had in my life as a revolving door. And so how much does that add to the trauma of the young people, and then the trauma of, the social worker has, because it's like, I'm burnt out. I got to deal with these kids, or not even just deal with the kids, but it's also got to deal with the families. And, I'm not going to lie, some of the families, they just do it strictly for the money. And I'm sure if they can get the money without the kid, they would opt for that. And then you look at some of the parents, and you're like, obviously not everyone, but a lot of the parents have their own mental challenges. And then you wonder why, the kid is crazy, the parent crazy, the social worker burnt out. What good result is going to come from that? So yeah, it's not just about throwing dollars there. I mean, granted, maybe hiring more social workers, giving them a good pay, emphasizing that mental and wellness care that the social workers and the guardians and the parents need. And I think now there's been a shift in mental health, and not looking at mental health as like, oh, you're crazy. Because as a kid growing up, therapy was like, oh, only crazy people do therapy. Right. And there's stigma. Yeah, the stigma associated with it, stigma growing up as a foster kid. Yep. Now it's like, no, it's much more easier to talk about these things, and people actually applaud you. I think I read something on one time that the pilot was like, hey, he was about to take off, and then he just like, oh, I'm not feeling it. And then he just, he left or whatever. And people they kind of celebrated that. They was like, hey, I don't want you flying this plane if you ain't feeling good in your spirit. Because if you start tripping and flying a plane and then you say, hey, it's all, it's over then, but for him to honor that moment and say, hey, you know what? I'm not really feeling good in my spirit right now. I know this is going to cause a major inconvenience, but better a slight inconvenience than a catastrophe that can happen, you know? So honoring the people that say, hey, I need to step back from the social work world or the foster care world or foster parenting or whatever and say, I need to just focus on myself, and us, encouraging in that more so that you're not, flying a plane and you're burnt out, or you're not working with these young people and, you are exhausted. And because then therefore your actions are going to be one of exhaustion. It's not going to be of, the good cheer that you started out to work with. And I'm taking a moment to honor that, like, hey, how are you feeling today? Now, I was joking with someone earlier. I was like, yeah, New York, up here, when you say, hey, how you doing? People really stop and be like, hey, how you doing? How's the kids?
Yeah.
Oh, they give you a whole 10-minute conversation. In New York, we're like, hey, how you doing? Good. Let someone, there was a skit where someone was like, hey, how you doing? They was like, well, and it was like, wait a minute. No, don't stop. You just say good and I say good and I go about my day. Don't say, well, bad,
small talk.
So it's those small things matter, checking in with our friends and family. Hey, how you doing?
I feel
really, how you doing?
Man, I feel like the demand for good foster care families is just so high.
For sure.
And there's so, the supply is so little. Shout out to all the good foster care families out there, because there are a lot. Like, I don't want to minimize that.
Absolutely.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. And, I got to witness my parents doing exactly that. Sure. So shout out to all the parents who are doing what, are put in that position and say yes and do it and do it with the right heart and not any, nefarious intent. Yeah. Yep. But, it's not just a matter of, we need to scrutinize the background checks a little bit more. Like, that sounds great, but then you have a supply and demand problem again, and my heart hurts for children that aren't given that care, that aren't, especially in those, informative years and those like you said it yourself, you had self-esteem issues and issues with your self-worth. Well, no kidding, and that's heartbreaking, especially for, generations to go through that. And, we could talk stats, we could talk, the family unit, we could talk all these things. We know the outcomes, the data's there. But at the end of the day, it's about people stepping up to the plate if they really want to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. Then man, I don't know how that, like, when we're looking about fixing a system like this to this scale, it's like there's such an uphill battle. Doesn't mean you don't fight it.
For sure. And it involved, the community. They always say that, the solution to any problem is where those who are in close proximity to the problem is. And so you're like, hey, I'm going to fix the foster care world and I'm just going to throw $100 million at it. It's like, well, first let's talk to the people who are impacted by the system or any other system that you're trying to fix. It's like, hey, let's talk to the social worker, let's talk to the foster parents. How can we support you more? And maybe it's like, hey, we need some type of, maybe family group where, foster parents get to hold space for each other and say, hey, how are you dealing with this thing that your child is, showing up or showing, and how, in whatever way, but just not looking at any problem and saying, hey, I'm going to come in from the outside and solve it. No, rather, I'm going to talk to the people who are immediately impacted by this by whatever problem it is. And then maybe we can find a solution amongst them.
Let me just pull up a couple of numbers here. So it looks like, trying some Census Bureau statistics here, 368,000 children in foster care in the U.S. It's a lot. I would like to know how many families, let's see, foster care families, I guess. It says, it says there are over 400,000 children in foster care in the U.S. Doesn't really give a number on how many parents. In 2020, 45% of children were in non-relative homes. 34% were in relative homes, and 6% were in institutions.
Mm.
Foster family shortage. There's a shortage of foster families. With the number of licensed homes declining in recent years, a high turnover rate of 30 to 50% also contributes to instability. Yeah. So that's not even, that's 50% of families that are either ineligible at the end, or don't discontinue. Mm-hmm. That's not a good trajectory. Yeah. I like what you said. You talked about, just throwing money at the issue, or coming up with these broad, here's the policy, position that will fix this. It's like, look to your community
for sure,
and maybe see what you can impact more locally. And then, that's going to have the biggest impact. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your education background?
Yeah. So I got my associates from St. John's University, which
Queens.
Yeah, in Queens. By far my favorite college experience.
Okay.
And then I transferred to NYU and got my bachelor's in political science. And NYU really challenged me academically, and where I'm like, yo, D, you got to go sit in the library for maybe 3 days and just really study it. And so I had to really lock in with NYU. Then when I left NYU, I was initially planning to go to law school, but around that time I got into meditation, and the Lord just was like, no, you're going to go take this path. And so now I still have ambitions to go to law school. That probably be in another 4 or 5 years as I just delve deep into this wellness. And because then I want to go into politics, this crazy political world that we're in.
What is the matter with you? I have the opposite feeling. I have had people recently come up and be like, there's some, a seat opening on local, whatever. Right. Like, no.
Brock's like, nah.
No, I'm all set. No, thanks. Right. Yeah. Well, that's good, because we need more good people doing it.
Yeah.
So, so NYU, man, I mean, that's a big school. Yeah. I would imagine that their academic prowess is pretty high.
Yeah.
Their standards are pretty high. Was that a big... St. John's too?
St. John's challenged me. I think when you... I think because St. John's does such a great job with fostering community. Queens in itself is the most diverse borough, not just in New York City, but I think in the United States.
Okay.
And so Queens being one of, obviously a very diverse school. So I had a good balance with, it's time to play, then it's time to go focus.
Yep.
And it was challenging, but, I still was able to, excel. But NYU was like, all right, you got to just put a little bit of playtime to the side, and you really got to go sit in the library and just study, because the papers were much more rigorous. And, I'm thankful that I went. And, one of the things that I share when I give speeches about this is I remember walking by NYU, because my high school was down a block from NYU in downtown Brooklyn. And I remember seeing all the kids going to NYU, and I'm walking by, and, NYU definitely creates this prestige, just like the Harvard of New York City, up there with Columbia. But when I got into NYU, I heard some of my former classmates speak or do this, that, and the third, and I'm like, you're no smarter than me, in some cases. And not to say that I'm smarter than them, but I maybe they didn't get in only off of their intelligence. Maybe they had a way in. Maybe their father or their mother was a NYU alumni, or, because there was some folks that was like, oh, wait, I guess everyone here is smart. Then you hear some folks speaking, you're like, nay. You didn't, and then you're like, oh, and then so some of the students were and obviously not all, but I remember classmates who were real nonchalant about their grades. Like, oh, well, my dad's this and my mom's that. And I'm like, wow, must be nice. I'm like, I'm on a scholarship, and if I don't pull out with at least a 3.0, they're going to kick me out. So
that's good though. I mean, that'll stretch you.
Yeah, for sure.
That will get you outside of your comfort zone. It's like, that's the place where you learn the most.
Exactly.
Are you familiar with the, it's usually in adolescent psychology, but the zone of proximal development?
Nay.
Okay. So it's exactly like it sounds. Like it's the area of your development where you grow the most. Proximal development. And it's usually when you're pushed a little bit outside your comfort zone in a safe manner, but something that you can attain. Then that's how you grow so fast. Like that's what it was for you. Because like you were definitely smart enough to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like,
for sure.
And so putting in the work,
Yeah.
saying, oh, like this is a little bit different level of, I guess, curriculum. It's a little bit higher standards. It's a little bit, it's pushing me a little bit more. Man, you can take that two ways. Like you can let that finish you, or you can let that propel you to something way better that you would have never knew you could get to. Like that's, dude, a degree from NYU is
for sure.
Pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
For sure.
Yeah, no, St. John's, we played baseball there.
Okay.
I played baseball there a few times.
Okay.
But nice school. So, okay, what made you interested in politics? Because you got a degree in political science.
Yeah. I think why I switched from business administration to politics was just fascinated with. What am I fascinated with about politics? Because it seems so divisive now. You're like, wait, you don't want to be fascinated with that?
Sure.
Get away from it.
Yes. Okay. That's a great point, because if you would look at anybody in today's political climate and you're just like, oh, I want to get into politics, it'd be like, people might judge that and say, well, there must be something in you that wants to, whatever the reason, insert your judgment. Yeah. So what's the underlying motivation?
I mean, I think that, politics is one of the only fields that ideally you go in it to help other people versus business. You go in it to make money, education, you go in it to teach, etc. Politics is like, hey, I'm running for office so that my ideas can help the community at large. And I think that has, interests me a lot to say, okay, I have so much experiences. I've lived with so many different families and traveled so much. And, once again, get understanding, though it costs you everything. And I think that sometimes our politicians lack understanding, and it becomes real, what do you call that? Like tribal. And if you're not in, then you're not in. If you're not in this economic stat class or this religious class or ethnic class, you can be ostracized. And it's like, no, we need more people in politics who, have experienced different experiences, so that when they do lead, they have more tolerance and patience with the people that they're leading. And now I'm not ready for it now. I'm not going to go run for office. So although I will say that I am interested in kind of showing my own politics here, but in Zoran Mamdani and his run for mayor. And if you ask me any politician now that I admire, and no one's perfect, but I really admire how he is, only 33 years old, and he's showing up with such his ideas, and how he's taken the vitriol and the hatred that people have thrown his way and just been so, talk about rising above it. Someone said to him the other day, he was on a bike or whatever with some people, and she was like, oh, communist. And he goes, it's called a cyclist. And like something just little as that, being able to take someone's meanness and just saying, hey, I'm just going to disregard that and just keep, change the energy, And I think that a lot of our politicians now, it's really just, it's us versus them. And it's like, no, we either rise together, we fall as one. And so, and lastly, and I am very thankful to God that I got into meditation before I even decided to go into politics, because I think it's important first to be able to regulate yourself when these emotions get high. But then also when I do go into politics, being able to start out with like, hey, let's all agree that we should take a few deep breaths before we get started. I got my bells. I brought my bells.
You can't do that in politics.
He's divisive. It's like, but
he'll cast you out. No,
right, exactly. You know, but it's like, hey, we it's like Abraham Lincoln said. He said, I don't like that gentleman. I must get to know him more. And that we don't really have that. It's like, oh no, I don't like that guy. Get away from me. I don't like his politics. Get away from me. But it's like, no, first let's all agree that we can all come to the center and breathe and make our breath all on one sync. And then from there, we can talk about our differences. And I will seek to first keep myself calm and then, seek to understand.
Yeah. I think that if we could all get to a place where our initial response to each other is not so appalling
Yeah.
because of whatever side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
Like there's something to the fact that when you really get down to it, a huge percentage of people want us to be prosperous, want us to love each other, want to do good things, want to raise generations for, the future that are going to be able to live together and do well and be safe. Yeah. And if you could start from that premise and then start to work out from there versus you're on the other side of me, so I don't like you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a crazy place to be, and we're real close to that.
Right.
I mean, we're there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Okay, so can you speak then, just your opinion as a political science degree holder, just the state of political discourse, the political climate that we're in.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I think that these conversations matter so much more now because, not that it's obvious, but I'm sure you and I have some differences in political ideas of our politics, but that has never stopped us from, you and I played ball together. We didn't, and you got a nice shot, you got a nice jimmy. I remember your jump. You know what I mean? And I ain't gassing your head up. No, Brock, he plays ball.
Keep going.
So I think that having conversations around, especially with people who you may not you disagree with, I think those conversations are more important, because if I go sit down and talk to everyone that agrees with me, what am I learning, or what am I, how am I being challenged? But if I go speak to someone who, grew up in a different state or city or religion than myself, and different politics, then, as I said earlier, a friend said, there are as many ways to see a thing as there are people to see it. And I think having that intuitive awareness, like, hey, just right now we have different politics, but there's two people, so there's instantly at least two different perspectives.
Right.
And they're having that humility and say, hey, I know my perspective, let me learn yours. And then from there, then we can say, okay, can you see it from this angle? And can I see it from that angle? But as far as the state of politics as a whole, I think that it's extremely toxic, and quite frankly, it does not help that and obviously this is both sides of the political spectrum, but it doesn't help that those in power now feed off of that. And, it's like the meme where the people hold the, what do you call those? The strings, and then
the marionette.
Puppets. And then all of that. And that's what it's like. And it's like, hey, they over there, they're eating good, and they're like, hell, let's throw the crumbs over there and let them fight over it. And so we're being like manipulated from those powers that be. When once again, we either rise together or we fall as one. And I think that lastly, once again, there's not enough conversations of people who have different political ideas and beliefs. And it's important, because really when we get to the core of our being, I'm sure we agree on things that are, like, hey, we agree that, we should be able to raise our children in safety. We should be able to give our children the best education that they can possibly have, to live in safety and to be able to provide food for our families. And so these are common things. But then you get into like, I don't want to even call them social issues, but like, you have what are some hot topics? You have trans people. You have you have you have so many different things that people just like, hey, because you see it this way, I'm not going to agree with you, and I'm not going to even engage with you. And it's like, right. Nah, we can disagree on things, but we can still have respect for one another. And but lastly, I think that we need more people to join politics and, to be more kind. I think right now it's just real, like, nah, it's us versus them. And I think once you step in there with that mindset, us versus them, and not that we're Americans, that we're human beings, that, memento mori, which is Latin for remember that you will die. And I think that's important too, because once you think that you're God, or you think that you have no expiration date, you just get on your high horse and you're not trying to understand people. And I think that, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Right. But, easier said than done, because I've had friends who are like hardcore Republicans, and sometimes talking to them, I'm like, okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me drink some water.
I need to go back to India.
I know that part. Go back to the mountains because y'all crazy. And I'm just like, nah, let me, but also, once again, getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and sometimes we have these conversations, and, sometimes it's going to get a little uncomfortable, but that does it. Someone said the other day that I heard, they said, attack the idea, not the person. And I think right now it's just, no, attack the idea and the person. And then that person feels like they're being attacked, and their natural instinct is to attack back. And then now we just have, tribal infighting. And it's like, that's not solving the biggest problems that we're facing.
It's attack the person because of the ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we're just not interested in listening to anybody who has a contrary view that we do. And I think that that's been super polarized by social media, by news networks, by, there's all kinds of variables that play there, and you have to be conscious of them at all times. Like, the truth is exactly like you said, we're all, I would say, I would love to know a percentage, but we all feel the same way about how the world that our kids are raised in. We'd like it to be better than it is for us. Sure. Like, I think everybody can agree with that. A rising tide lifts all boats. That's kind of where we want to get this framework from. And the more that I see, it's tribalism on every front. It's white versus black. It's Republican versus Democrat. It's rich versus poor, which I would argue is actually the biggest one.
For sure.
And at what point can you start to separate those things that are so antithetical to the American experience? The reason that we're here is because we can do it together. And I think that is so true. Also realizing, and this is a quote that I heard recently from Charlie Kirk, actually, was like, online fury is not real life, man. And like, how powerful that is. It's actually true. I remember being in the middle of the pandemic and just seeing the contrast between people who were stuck in their houses during lockdown and just watching media nonstop on loops with a death toll counter at the bottom, and everybody's in fear and panic, and then it become tribal again, because then there was people who didn't agree with it, and then there was people who 100% agreed with it, and they had to go attack each other. And then leaving my apartment, going out in the real world and experiencing people on a face-to-face level, and realizing, like, that's all fake. That's not real. Because the only way that you can fix all that online noise and that online division is like this.
To have the conversations.
Yeah, it's like this. You have to be able to sew into relationships and talk to people face to face, man, because once you get behind a keyboard, and most of it's anonymous anyways, maybe start to address that person as a friend in private conversations and whatever, and build that relationship that you can have those hard conversations.
For sure. Because they say, when you first meet someone, you shouldn't talk politics or religion. Like, you don't just go, did you vote for Trump or not? Because that's instantly instantly combat. So instead, like, hey, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do for fun? And it's not saying that it's superficial, but you're easing your way into it. And then you're also connecting on other things. There's this exercise real fast that I was at this community meeting where it was like maybe 9 or 10 tables, and each table had about 4 or 5 people there. And they said, hey, the icebreaker is each person at the table, we want you guys to find 5 things that each of you have in common. So if one of you don't, let's say if it's 4 people at the table and everyone likes coffee except for one person is more of a tea guy, then you don't have that in common. And so you have to keep searching for what you have in common. And that was a good exercise, because it was like, hey, we don't agree on your coffee, I'm tea. You like blue, I like red, or whatever it is. But then when we go deeper and like, oh, wait, hold on. I like this, or dislike that, or whatever the case may be, or I've been there, and then you're like, oh, we actually have these things in common that we didn't even know. But if you leave it at, you know, the social media level, or, you know, the news media, it's like, oh, you know, he's black, he's white, so you guys shouldn't have a conversation. He's Republican, you're Democrat. No, you guys should be at each other. And it's like, that's not, you know, since we are believers, that's not how Christ Jesus would want us to be. You know, I mean, he would want us to, you know, be tolerant of other people, to be patient, to seek to understand other perspectives and as such. But right now, it's none of that. It's just, you know, you believe this, or you support that cause or that group of people, then you demonize that person, and you know, that's just, it's not healthy. So I think, like I said, these conversations are very helpful because, you know, it breaks some of that down, you know, and then you get to see the human in the other person, and you're like, oh, well, forget your politics, or forget what you believe in. I can see you for who you are. Right. And that, you know, at least when you do have those conversations about politics and it gets a little heated, you still like, oh, that's still my brother at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And so.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest concern just with the current climate. Even in the last couple of months, is that like we think that it's okay. Yeah. You know, like the political violence is not okay.
Yeah.
On any side. Nobody deserves that. Like, I just don't. And so it makes it very hard to look at the current landscape and start finding ways back. And I think that the ways back are to have conversations like this. Like, you have to understand the humanity in people. Yeah. And as soon as you lose that part of you, man, it gets dark for you fast. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, forget for your own self, like for the community, for your families, for the future, you're painting a bleak picture, man. Yeah. You know? So yeah. I mean, good for you for wanting to get into that area.
I have my moments where I'm like, Lord, why? But, you know.
Well, here's the thing. And this is what I see in you. And someday when you get into politics, I'll help hold you accountable too. And I want you to hold me accountable all the time. Is you have a decision to make on whether you're going to be a unifier or whether you're not. And ultimately, that's the goal. If our goal is to, as one nation, move forward together, then you have to be a unifying figure. And look, our current administration does a lot of things wrong that way. For sure. And so didn't the one before that. Sure. And so on and on and on. And we have to be able to call out nonsense on our own side when it happens, because the silence is like, it is deafening. For sure. When, you know, I think we can all agree, like, Trump says a lot of really dumb things. Yeah. And I think we can all agree that, for sure. And, you know, and I think that the ability for, you know, people of more conservative leanings like myself you got to call that out. You got to be ideologically consistent. You got to be morally consistent. You know, that there becomes a weird balance there to when, like, well, can you vote for somebody based on policy versus their character? And we've had the discussion on here before, and that depends on each individual if you can separate the two or not. For sure. But blind following, you know, blind cult-like following for any movement, for any political ideology is just wrong. Yeah. You know, you kind of forfeit that intellectual honesty when you start to say, no matter what, I'm following this. No matter what, I don't care. That's my opinion. Yeah. Man, I mean, I think that's just kind of where we are. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And to your point, and you know, and I applaud you for being able to say, hey, you know, especially as a more conservative person, to be able to say, hey, you know, I'm not in agreement with what this administration is doing on X, Y, and Z front, because there are, I'm sure, a lot of conservatives and even ultra conservatives who know religiously and know, you know, they read the Bible, or at least allegedly they do, and they're like, they're not speaking out against whatever he's doing that they're not in agreement with in private, or rather they may not be in agreement with them in private, but publicly they're not saying anything about that.
Yeah.
And that goes the same way for the liberals and things that maybe their leaders are like, hey, maybe we should not do X, Y, or Z, and basically being able to be consistent in your morality, your moral compass, and saying, I don't care who you are, I'm gonna call out wrong is wrong. I'll never forget someone said to me, I was like maybe 12, 13 years old. He said, Demetrius, doing the wrong things for the right reasons, it is wrong. Doing the right things for the wrong reasons, it is wrong. Is only doing the right things for the right reasons, which is right. And that always stood with me because you say, okay, well, I'll just rob the bank so I can feed my family. Well, feeding your family is right, but robbing the bank is wrong, even though it's for a right and just cause. And the other way around, doing something that's wrong or doing something that's right, but it's for wrong reasons or whatever. So it's like just try to do the right things for the right reasons, and it's only that which make it right. And sometimes, being able to, don't be afraid to be an outcast, even if everyone else is going to be like, yo, you're crazy, or I'm going to, well, you know what? Sometimes to be brave enough to stand against the crowd and say, you are all wrong, and I'm going to stand on that. That's bravery, and that's legacy.
We have to be able, Tyson, my brother, and I had this conversation just, I think 2 weeks ago. You're supposed to be able to show decorum and show a unifying message. And I think a lot of what he does can be divisive. He just, the way he says stuff. And so, yeah, I think being consistent on that matters. And it'd be a huge criticism of mine that he does. And not only that, but it also produces another side, a counterbalance side to him, where I can say whatever I want if he says that.
Yeah. And I think that's what's most dangerous about, amongst many things that I would say, but how he's kind of set the standard, but people after him is going to be like, well, he did it, so why can't I speak out like this? Why can't I mimic that person or say this? Or why can't I broad brush a whole group of people or race of people in this way? And it's like, and I think that just sets a bad precedent, because once again, your politics is your politics. But when you are at that stage,
or that visibility
where everyone sees you, and especially minds that are, the average American, I hate to say it, but reads at a 4th, 5th grade level. And so meaning that people can be easily manipulated. And so if they see that, this person at this point in their life, or this position of power and this level of influence is saying X, Y, or Z, then they're like, hey, why do I got to respect group of people?
It gives justification for the same in turn.
That's what makes it dangerous.
And in response. Yeah, definitely. And I've heard a lot of that argument. Like I watch a lot of debate. I watch a lot of discussion and lectures and stuff like that. But a lot of the debates, that's kind of what it is. They'll be pressed on something that they said that was outlandish. And their defense is, well, I'm not the president, and here's what the president says. And that is such a disgusting place to be.
No accountability.
Because on a personal level, there's no accountability there.
For sure.
There's no insight or self-awareness, and that is a dangerous place to be. Because then you start to justify actions that you maybe otherwise wouldn't have done.
And it's even more the double standard, or when it's in the sense when these people are like, oh, I follow Christ. And it's like, well, what Bible you're reading? Because the Christ that I know, he said, feed the poor, clothe the naked, don't turn the foreigner away, and help and lend your hand out, and, sell your rich things and follow me, take up your cross and follow me. And it's a lot of that self-interest, like, no, me. If you're not part of this demographic or this, you're not American. It's like, wait, what does it really mean to be American? I didn't travel the world. I'd have been to Japan, Africa, India, Europe. Each part of the world, everywhere you go to Japan, you're going to see Japanese people. You go to India, you see Indian people. Africa, likewise, and et cetera, everywhere else. But it's only in America that you can come into a local bar in, let's say, New York City, and you see everything in there. You see, or in the train, you see the diversity. That's what makes us so rich as a nation. And I think that's our strength, being able. And then once again, if we really go deep into our ancestry, granted, my ancestors might have been brought here through enslavement. Your ancestors might have been fleeing somewhere in Europe or wherever. But really, what does it mean to be an American but to have found a place where we can all equally call it our home? And I think that when you it's like getting to the ladder of the mountain and kicking the ladder down and saying, we don't want no one else up here. It's like, no, you got here, or your ancestors, your great-grandparents got here from whichever way. And I think we're losing that. It's like, no, this is what it means to be an American. Well, America is so diverse. There's no one particular way to be an American. That's what makes America so special, is that it's so diverse. And that diversity makes it so rich, where other countries would love to be like us, but and I think that it's becoming very tribal. Like, oh, if you don't believe what I believe, if you don't support what I support, then you are the op, or you're the enemy. And it's like, that's toxic. And that's not showing the compassion that Jesus wants us to show, the patience that he wants us to have for our brother and sister. Remember, none of us are making it out of here alive. No one. And so when we're living, I think it's incumbent upon us to pause a little bit more and be like, hey, is this the way I want to be treated? Or my children, do I want them to be singled out because of their belief or their way of life, or like, nay, let's, but like I said, the best thing is that we having these conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
And that just produces more understanding and,
Yeah, I think I think we're at a weird place in I guess political discourse, however you want to call it. It's just become so, like Trump was a reaction to something. Okay. Trump was the wrecking ball to establishment politics for however long. And I think in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to when he's done.
Yeah.
And, history will write however it gets written. Sure. But I'm looking for some Trump. I wouldn't consider Trump a conservative. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Fiscally, definitely not. Mm-hmm. Morally, that means that it's a hard place to judge. Again,
for sure.
As believers in Christ, it's also very hard to judge somebody when you don't get a clear picture. Like, unless you know somebody, you have their actions and you have what's visible, and even that can sometimes be spun and context missing.
For sure.
So I guess it's hard. It's hard to pass judgment on anybody you don't know really well.
Personally. But then we judge the fruit. We judge the tree by the fruit. Mm-hmm. And if a person is speaking a certain way or advocating for something that is, harmful to a group of people or whomever, it's like, the words out of a person's mouth comes from their heart. And so we can kind of create some type of idea of what the person is by the words that they share and the fruit that is that comes from them. And once again, when you are a personal businessman running your business, that's your prerogative, your business. But when you are the leader of a nation, you are a leader of a people, you gotta have some type of like, hey, you know what? I may believe this personally. I may not like this group of people, but I got to be more diplomatic about it. Right. I got to be a little bit more gentle with my words.
I wouldn't say that's President Trump's best quality.
Nay, it's not a quality of his own. It's not a quality of him at all.
The diplomatic side. Yeah, no, it's it's interesting because you also see people who feel polished, who say the right things, whose fruit is also not good.
Exactly. And then there's those people too. And it's the wolf and the fox.
Yep.
I mean, he might be the wolf, but the fox is also, you got to watch out. The fox comes up and tries to make friends with you, and then it swipes you when you're not looking. So, but once again, with that word we said earlier about discernment, about having a discernment on who's who so that you can navigate it. But most people are not, especially I was on a train the other day and just watching these young kids being able to just on TikTok, it's no more than 5 seconds. Just next.
Have you seen the videos of like the toddlers doing it?
Oh no. But, I mean, that in itself is horrible because we're talking about their neurodevelopment being altered because they're so engage with this technology. I mean, even Steve Jobs was like, Steve Jobs said, he was like, I don't even let my kids have iPhones. How is the maker or the founder or the the leader of this company is like, I don't give my own children this product.
Right.
And it's like, but the attention span and there is no attention span. It just feeds it feeds the the lack of focus, it's really harmful to their development, because it's so overly stimulating, because each video is very it's
designed
pull you
that way.
in.
It's designed that way,
of course. Yeah. Which is, and then we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. But when I can catch myself, I'm like, all right, dude, you need to go read a book or something.
What they call it, like brain rot. Like
man,
it's true, man. I think just the overarching theme of judging somebody's heart is difficult, but yeah, I agree. Like, you can see the fruit. Like, you can a lot of times see the fruit in people, and it makes it hard in a political system that we have, where you don't really just get to pick for whoever you want. So sure. Some of the. Do you know who Trey Gowdy is? I'm sure you know Trey Gowdy. He he was the one that went after Hillary Clinton. Well, not really. I mean, he was a congressman or senator or whatever. Okay. He was the head of the House Oversight Committee regarding Benghazi and the emails and whatever else. Okay. Anyways, he, as far as moral standing goes, I mean, seemed to be there for the right reasons and was kind of looking for the truth. And when he had started getting options, I guess, to take the next political office up, a governorship or whatever, he got out completely. Okay. And I thought, like, that's pretty interesting. Okay. And in his kind of exit interview, he said, it's not about right and wrong anymore. It's about winning. Yeah. And I was like, zero-sum game. The guy who understands that, or somebody similar, like, if we could get to that place of understanding, that'll win you an election right there. Like, hey guys, this is not about winning for me. Like, this is about, we should know what's right here. Let's figure out what's right. Let's pursue that. Yeah. And then, it's always like that's the good guy that you want to run, and he won't run. And so in our system now, it's kind of like, you can abstain and just not be involved, or you can pick between two options you don't like. And then
less is of evil.
How do you make those? I would love to know the numbers for people who voted against Trump just because it was Trump.
For sure.
It's a good number. And probably vice versa. It's like, oh, well, it's not necessarily because they love their candidate 100%. It's because they
don't want the other guy to win.
Yeah, they hate the other one.
You're going to be bad, but this person's going to be worse.
Right. So you're voting against what you think is the lesser of two evils, which is such a terrible place to be. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, and this should be a message to anybody, both sides, all sides. Like, look at the fruit, listen to the messaging, do the best you can to discern, rely on the Holy Spirit, and let it go. Yeah. And then deal with it that way. That's really the only way you can do it. Yeah. Because we live in an age of manipulation, lack of context, lack of attention span, and everybody will read a cover and think that that's gospel, or they'll read an article header and think that they understand the situation. Yeah. I mean, it's tough.
Just to add, like, even with the whole AI thing, like, there's videos online. You're like,
forget about it.
I can kind of be like, okay, that's a fake video, but they're getting so good, and the fact that they can take your voice and your image and manipulate it, and that makes me afraid somewhat for the future, because there are bad actors in the world who will just take anything, because once again, it's not about what's right or wrong. It's about winning, and if that means I'm going to win, then I'm going to do it. And there are people who are very gullible and susceptible to being manipulated, and and that's where it gets murky, and it gets very scary, because they can take, once again, your image, your voice, or any of those things, and manipulate it and make it as visibly believable as one can conceive.
Give it 5 years, man.
Yeah,
I'm nervous to see where that goes. That is one thing that, if you can't decipher between reality and fiction, can you come back from that? What does it look like? You can get anybody you want saying anything you want. Yeah, it's terrifying.
And then we have seen that when there are people in power who say a certain thing, and then the next day is a mass shooting, or there's a are killing here. And so this is why if you are, and I think one should always be mindful of their words and how their words impact people. But the higher you go, how much more is that responsibility on you to mitigate your words and to be very diplomatic in what you say, because there are people who will take, all these people are rapists, or they are, this, that, and the third. And then someone living in, a very small town or a big town, and they take that and they listen to it and they're manipulated, and then they go and commit the act. And so,
well, that's what feeds into the general hysteria. Yeah, always. And it's something that people should, especially with platforms, should be mindful of. Yeah. Like, there's a responsibility to what you say. And I guess for me, it's a weird place to be. Like, it's a hard time to understand what's true. Yeah, for sure. And I'm nervous about like the next level AI stuff that's, well, here you go. Here's a video of President Trump declaring war on somebody that's not real. Yeah, yeah. And then what does that do to a society, with panic and yep. And I don't think like you can't run away from it. It's a weird time to live in. Yeah. Some of those AI videos are wild.
Yeah. No, they are really. It's getting more. They're getting more developed, more advanced. Yeah.
Does that concern you?
It makes, once again, I think because there are bad actors in the world, and not saying that I'm perfect. We all got our things, but there are people who will take advantage of it. And once again, because their mindset is that we need to win, and they're not, they don't care about the chaos that may happen from it, or the how it may impact people. They just want to win. And so that part makes me, and then once again, seeing how easily people can be manipulated, and how, in a world where technology is like this on our phone, critical thinking is taking more of a back seat. Yeah. And so people are not going to question, oh, wait, did he really declare? They're just going to see it from one, TikTok video or one Instagram reel. They ain't going to go and check 3, 4, 5 different sources. Yeah, they're not going to do that. They're just going to believe it, and that's what's going to be. And the fact that there are people who want to take advantage of that, that's what makes me like, especially as someone who wants to be president or go into office, it's like, oh, well, this is the world you're walking into, and that there are people who will try to, manipulate you and take advantage of you. And, but this is where, getting right with your mind and taking care of yourself, and where, so that you can see through some of the mirages that the world is throwing at you. It's so important.
Well, wellness isn't just physical wellness. It's mental wellness. It's intellectual wellness, and critical thinking. That's a buzzword that you can't even, like, who teaches that anymore? Right. Like, when we were in school, it was like, think critically. Like, man, we lost that.
And I think, once again, with this, just watching the kids and once again, we all do it, but just the 3, not even 3. And one time I just sat there like 1, 2, next video, 1, 2. And it's just, there's that, you can't think in that span where your brain is just, and that's all information that your brain is downloading and deciphering, moving through. Yeah. And so, I would say, if you want to increase your critical thinking, open a book, read, get back to, now it feels archived, like where it's like part of the older ages to read and write, but being able to read more helps you be able to think more. And this is where the meditation, being able to sit still and just, be present with your breath and create time where you're off your phone. And like I said, it's easier said than done, because sometimes I got my Bible on one side of the bed and my phone on the other side, and I'm just grabbing my phone every morning. But then how that has the ripple effect from then the next step I do is like, I'm on my phone for 30 minutes or whatever. Then I'm getting caught up in this, whatever it is. And it's like, no. And that starts the day. And now all of a sudden I'm, now I'm anxious, and it's a domino effect.
It will rewrite your brain.
For sure.
To be so like impulse needy.
Yeah, exactly.
I need this right away. Right away. This is the problem that you see while I was in law enforcement. We've talked about this before. This is the problem with the 3-second video clip. Like, hello, everybody sees a 3-second video clip and they're like, I know what happened.
Guilty.
Alrighty, put him away. I know his motive. I know his heart. Yeah, it kind of gets back to everything that we've been talking about. It's like, I think at the end of the day, people just need to kind of unplug, take a second, and be conscious of the fact that this thing in our pocket has access to the world.
Good
and
bad.
I'm not sure that we're supposed to have that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good for us.
Or at least be able to control it and not let it control
moderate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's just the truth with anything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit of most things is okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of bit of most things will kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a great point. Yeah. All right, let's transition.
Okay.
It was deep.
Good deal.
Deep and heavy. We won't get into super debates about policing or anything. Everybody, you have to tune in for part 2.
Right.
What do you do for fun? What's fun?
So it's funny you say that because my homegirl took me to a gun range.
Dude, I saw that. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot. Oh.
Yeah, man. I had a
First
rifle.
time? First time shooting any gun.
I did shoot it was a rifle, but it wasn't with my Amish family, they got like one old
like a
gun.
hunting rifle.
Yeah.
A musket.
Right. One of them old guns, and I shot it one time. But this was the first time I shot a more right. This was these are more modern guns. That was like, oh God, that was exhilarating. That was fun.
You got a little bit now you better be careful. Right. You're going into 2A. You're going into Second Amendment absolutist over here.
Now I'm like, wait, I believe in the Second Amendment. Don't take my gun.
Just so I can let out some anger at the gun range.
But I had a fun time.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was sweet.
Where was that? In New York?
It was in Jersey.
Okay, in Jersey.
Yeah. And shout out to Joe, who was a former Marine, and he was able to very patient with understand like, okay, that's how you reload the gun, this how you shoot it, because those safety things matter. But once I got a hang of it, I was just like, it was so funny because there was one moment that because generally you just shoot and you let it, but the guy next to me, he was just dong dong. I'm like, you know what? Let me put a little mang pew pew everybody die. So,
dude,
but I had a
it's
really
addicting,
good time.
right? Yeah,
it is.
No, it's fun. It's big responsibility
for sure.
Lots of debates around guns, obviously. But man, like I saw that on your Instagram. Was it maybe something?
Instagram,
I was like, oh, I'm definitely bringing that up in the podcast, and I just forgot until you brought it up. So it tells you how my mind space works. It looks like fun. Yeah, it looks like you had I had
a Smith & Wesson and
okay, it was Smith & Wesson, the handgun.
Yeah, the handgun.
Okay, because it had the back. It's like a lever cover. It's where you can't see the lever action anymore, but that's more modern in all guns. It looked like a SIG to me.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Smith & Wesson.
Yeah. And then the rifle was some other type of gun that I had fun. I had a nice little kickback to it. Yeah. So I'm like, because I play Call of Duty. That's my game.
You can kind of feel, okay.
Yeah.
So you got real life.
Fun.
Well, it's not too late to join the Marines. I love when people get exposed for the first time. It's fun to watch them be like, oh man, especially people who, not that you're this way, but I know a lot of people who are like, guns are evil. Guns are evil.
Guns kill.
And you're like, yeah, guns, if you just let it sit over there, just sits over there.
Right,
exactly. And for them then to go to a range and be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
I understand. More like for the gun enthusiast side of people.
For sure.
No, I mean, I like guns, especially for home defense and different things. But it is different. You kind of feel the responsibility too.
For sure.
And then you understand.
Even shooting it and feeling that power, I was like, oh my God, like to shoot this at a person, like that's like the Z to the alphabet. Like never would I, even, and I ain't going front, I would like to be licensed, and I pray to God I'd never use it. It would just be more like, yo, bro, just chill. Let's just, let's be calm.
Peace of mind, yeah.
Yeah,
wait,
you know what I mean?
New York City.
The state Republicans did something where you can have it, but in certain places you can. Maybe like 42nd Street, you have to be locked away. Yeah, I mean, I digress.
Okay, so all right, because I had thought that New York City was gun free.
Yeah, you can get it. It's much more of a rigorous process, but
that's an interesting. That whole thing would be an interesting debate to have sometime.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear your thoughts about that. Yeah, it's a whole.
I mean, living up here, I can see why you would have X, Y, and Z, but in the city, it's just so many people. And then once again, we New Yorkers, we step on someone's train or foot, or we bump them. You know what I mean? So imagine it's like, let me pull out my. It's like, no, chill. Everybody, calm down, man. We all trying to get to the next destination. the A train stink. We trying to get home. Yeah, let's just chill. But I think in high.
There's some new. I think there's, like with most things, there's some nuance around a lot of these topics. It doesn't have to be tribal, polar ends, polar opposites of the argument, just for argument's sake. The gun debate would be one of those. I think. I would be all for. I don't think that it's just. I'm not like a 2A absolutist constitutional carry. You just walk in, anybody can get one. I'm not that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Just trying to be a rational human being here. Yeah. But that's another thing. It's a delicate balance. How much of your rights do you give away to the government?
Sure.
That's a big concern, I think, for probably the right side. And then how do you keep people safe? And that's like a big concern for the other side.
Yeah.
And
that's a good way to say it. Yeah.
With most issues, I can see both sides of it and kind of try to figure out a middle ground there. But I do think that it's very good to hold courses for people who are going to carry. Yeah. Great.
For sure.
It's inconvenient. Like to have to take a whole weekend to learn, but you probably should, because like the responsibility is there, and you need to know how to operate properly.
Think about driving. You got to get a permit, then you got to go through driving lessons, and then that's just to operate a vehicle. Yeah. So I think that there should be a little bit more of that, because even the way Joe he's like, all right, you hold it this way, put your thumb this way, and there's little things that I ain't gonna. You wouldn't have known. Turn the gun this way. I didn't, but
that's the most New York City thing you've ever said.
Right. It's like, turn the gun this way, and Joe's like, no. But the little things, your stance and how
Plus, it's very hard to shoot a gun this way.
Right. Especially the kickback. You know what I mean? So like those little things, like you would learn inside some type of schooling. So and
a greater appreciation for the responsibility that takes.
Exactly. And the more perhaps training you go through, then you would appreciate having gone through it and say, now I have my license and I can carry X, Y, or Z and whatnot. And then the person gets to see, okay, how is this person's mental health? Because I feel like if a person just walks into, Walmart or wherever and be like, hey, let me get those 3 automatic, let me get a vest, a helmet, all these ammo. And like, where are you going? Where are you going? I'm just going down the block. You're like, all right, credit or cash? You're like, that's a little
it's a little crazy. That's a little nuts. Yeah. What else do you do for fun?
What else? I like to cook. I like to travel. I like to travel.
You work out.
Yeah.
You look like you work out.
Yeah. Fitness,
big.
For sure. And then once again, that's part of the keeping the mental health elevated.
Oh, definitely.
Amongst, I see your gym set up back here, which is really good. Very, very.
It doesn't get as much use since I have kids now. I'm so busy.
I bet. Working with the kids is even a workout in itself.
That is true.
So working out. Writing. I like to read, so I do a lot of reading.
Okay. What touch on you're writing a book?
Yeah. I'm writing a book. It's called Leader of Many, and just real fast. And one of the only conversations I had with my biological father, I asked him where did him and my mom come up with the name Tashiron? Because as a kid, you always wonder if someone else has your name, or you meet someone else with your name. And no one else had my name. And so I was like, hey, where'd you get that name from? And he was like, oh, Ter, comes from his first name. Terry. Cher comes from his favorite singer name, Cher. And then Ron comes from his middle name, Ronald. And then they put it together to Sharon.
It's a cool name.
I received thanks. Cool. And then the meaning they gave to it was leader of many. And this was way before I got into public speaking. I was back 16, 17 years old when they told me this. And so it was very prophetic that they spoke this over my life. Because I left my parents' care before I turned 1 year old. And so they kind of blessed me with that name and that meaning. And then, I was put in the system. So that's the name of the book, Leader of Many. And that's going to just talk about my journey through foster care and all the things that I surmounted. And then, because once again, my story is not unique. This is, unfortunately, the story of a lot of young people in foster care. Right. And I'm just fortunate enough to have gotten through it and then can articulate it in a way that shares it in an authentic and transparent and way where people can be like, okay, this is what happens in the foster care system, or this is, his story or their story. So yeah, but writing a book is not always easy because sometimes it's easy to talk about things. It's a whole nother to sit there and write about it, and then to look at. I'm like, wow, I'm writing about this type of abuse, or when I was in this, I'm in this person's home, or what happened. Remember, it's not what happened. It's not what's wrong with you. What happened to you? So writing this book is basically writing about all the things that happened to me and that things that I did, etc. And it's like derobing in front of the world. And especially in a world where you can, the worst thing can happen to you, and someone on social media on the comments is going to laugh at it and be like, well, damn, or, like, damn, where's the humanity in this? But, I think what keeps me grounded is, one, knowing that Demetrius, someone else is going to read this story one day, and they're going to see it as a, what do you call that? A lighthouse. They're going to see it as a way that hey, I'm not the only one that has gone through this. I'm also someone else is, going through this, so it's going to be inspiring. And then lastly, when I'm no longer in this world, that will be a way for me to still speak to people through my story and still inspire people, alongside it, most importantly, being healing for me just to write it and let it go, because I'm not foster care. That was just a meantime experience in my life, and there's so much more to me than these 22 years where I spent in foster care. So yeah, I'm manifesting that it will be out early. I hopefully by the end of next year, at latest 2027. Okay. But quality over quantity. So making sure that my editor said, focus on getting it right, not just done, and that's where my focus is.
So leader of many.
Yeah, leader of many. Okay. Leader of many.
And I want a signed copy.
Yeah, for sure. You already know, bro.
Hey, when that comes out, come back on.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, good deal.
I loved a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this, and we did talk a little bit about nuance and perspectives about understanding where people have come from and their experiences, and not judging. Yeah, and kind of meeting them where they're at.
For sure.
I am also a big believer in personal agency as well. For sure. And I think you are too. You're just a great testament to that. And I want you to know that. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you've been through, the humility and grace that you've dealt with life, man. Like you've had a rough go.
Yeah, for sure.
And I appreciate your perspective, especially on, a lot of this is politics don't matter. Like, I know you're going into politics. They do matter. Okay. They impact people's lives. That's not what I mean. But at the end of the day, this is what matters. This relationship is what matters, in the grand scheme of things. And I'm just really proud of you. Personal agency is when I'm thinking about you and your character and what you've been through. That's the phrase that comes to mind. It's like, this is a person who actually did the hard thing, who actually did overcome a lot of these things. Maybe not all the way yet. That's fine. Sure. We're all on this journey. My goodness, I'm trying to get better at things that every single day that most people are ahead of me on. And that's part of the journey. And so I just see somebody who's extremely mature and intentional about what they're doing. And I appreciate you a lot.
Gratitude, bro.
So, anything else for me? Anything else for the pod?
I think if I had any parting words, someone once told me to be where your feet are and remember your breath. And I think that all that's going on in the world right now, once again, the chaos in the world is only a reflection of the chaos within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so, take care of you, take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your community and your country and the world. Because by taking care of yourself, you're going to show up in the world in a more mindful, gentle, less reactive, more responsive way. Mm-hmm. And self-care is no one else's responsibility than your own. And that's it. Just and you can follow me, Demetrius Napolitano, Napolitano on Instagram, my nonprofit Fostering Meditation, and I'm grateful to be here with you. And
I'll put all the links in the description for all that stuff too. I got something before you go.
Okay.
From our partner.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you're into coffee, but that's for you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Oh man, my pleasure.
Yeah. That's straight Colombian roast, my friend.
Colombian. Okay.
Yeah, straight from there. So.
All right, good deal.
I can't thank you enough. What a great time.
My pleasure, bro.
Yeah. This will be the first of many.
One.
First of many. Yeah, definitely.
Next time we're going to get a little deeper into politics. And,
we can do that.
I want to talk that, especially talking with someone that I'm close to, I have a relationship with. And it's okay to talk with, someone who, at a local bar. That's fine too.
Yeah.
But I feel like because we have a relationship, we can share our opinions and our thoughts, and at the end of it, when it's all said and done, bro, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, the relationship's still there.
You know what I mean? Yep. And that's important versus someone I might meet. They like, once you show yourself to be believing in this, it's over.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Ostracize them. Yeah,
man.
It also is a deeper, like the relationship. We've talked about it this whole entire podcast. Yeah. Like that's the foundation. Once that's there, you can start to dig a little deeper on things and start to understand, and then probably find agreement on a lot of things too.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is what it's all about.
Gratitude.
So, all right, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man.